Okay, so the next thing that I want to explain is the file management, right? So you guys need to be aware that at some point your files are going to become very large and complex, right? Maybe not now, maybe not in a year or two, but it's always best to be thinking about how to control the information that flows through your model. In fact, next week we're going to start to apply materials and settings by layers, and so we'll need to be very descriptive and purposeful in how we name and assign our layer materials and stuff like that. So anyway, what we have over here is a series of layers in the layer tab. So if you guys don't see that currently, these are all tabs at the top. Again, this is a bit of a recap. So the layers tab or panel has some preloaded layers. You may or may not have preloaded layers. I don't know. Sometimes it gives me them, sometimes it doesn't. I never really paid attention to why or why not. Anyway, so we have these preloaded layers, and if you need to add a new layer, you can just click on new layer, and it'll come out as layer 6, and you can call it whatever you want. But what we're going to do is control it by certain elements. So we're going to have a beam layer, and we're going to have, actually we're going to have a few beam layers. In fact, 3. And then we're also going to have 3 planar layers. So let's start off by setting this up. Layer 1, I'm going to transition to beam, what did I say, 80% grayscale? Let me pull this out so you can actually see it.
It's 80, 50, and 20.
80, 50, 20, thank you. It doesn't really matter which layer. You don't have to do like layer 1 and layer 2. This is the next one in my list, so this is the one I'm changing. So I'm going to call this beam 50% grayscale. And another one for 20. Additionally, I'm going to need my planes, and so I have a plane opaque, or if you want to keep to a numerical signifier, you can just call it 100%. So this is 100% opacity. The next one, I think, what did I say, 50 to 60? I forget exactly, but
50 to 60.
Yeah, 50, 60.
all right. So I'm just going to call it 50% opacity for simplicity's sake, but it might change later. You as the designer, you know that you have some flexibility there. And then the other one is,
15% translucent.
thank you very much, 15% opacity. So sometimes you might want to model in colors that are similar to what you're going to see. That part's up to you. But for me, when I'm designing something to be in grayscales, I want my layers to actually be somewhat close to that grayscale so that when I'm putting a dark one next to a light one, I can actually see it. So for this, I'm going to go here to gray, and you could actually do the math on it if you want. If you're curious, and I'm really bad at this stuff, but the color menu that pops up, right? You have gray, or dark gray, gray, and light gray. So theoretically, you could just choose dark gray, gray, and light gray if you want. But if you really wanted to do the math on it, there are 255 color points on the scale. So if I go to white, you'll see that RGB values are all 255. So an 80% would be 255. It's kind of reversed because the 0 value is black. So it's going to be 255 times 0.2, which is going to be a value of 51. And this is just if you care that much. You could just go with dark gray if you want. This is almost black. The next one would be 255 divided by 2 because it's 50%. What was that value? 127, 128, I'll just call it. And then the other one would be 203 or something like that, right? 204. Dang. My arithmetic is terrible. There we go. So we have some grayscales. The opacities are a little bit harder because, I mean, you could set your actual objects to be translucent. I don't know if there's a way to do that by layer. Color material. I actually don't know if there's a way to make your layer. I don't know if there's a way to make your objects translucent by the layer, except for in rendering. Yeah, yeah, but that's not layer based, is it?
Oh yeah, it's not layer based.
Yeah, so that's what I'm getting at. Anyway, so what I'll do is I'll just choose like a cool gray, right? Something that's kind of bluish, makes you think of glass or like the reflecting of the sky, right? So I'm going to pick something with like a blue tint to it. And really I'm just going to go here to 100% opacity is going to be, actually, 100% I'm going to make white, I think. 50% I'll make a cooler blue. Something like a sky blue. Or gray bluish. That might not be blue enough. Like that. Actually, that's too blue. Sorry, I went way too blue. More gray. All right, and this one will be that. So you'll notice that the darkness of the colors are very apparent when you're using really big sheets. So for instance, I'm just going to test this out with you guys. Actually, no, I won't. No, I'm not going to test anything. Let's go ahead and just assign these things to the proper layers. That's what I'm getting at. So this small one, I'm just going to throw on the darker color, right? So I'm going to try to, balance and this is a design decision that you guys can make, right? So I'm presenting this like a designer. We have dark colors and light colors, and we have small beams and heavy beams. So personally, because I'm going to be battling these really big beam structural elements, I want those to feel light. So I'm going to make them the lighter color. Adversely, you could say, well, they are heavy, so I'm going to render them as heavy. It's kind of a design decision, but I'm going to go opposite here. So the light beam, I'm going to make a 80% grayscale. So in order to do that, you select the object, you go up to the layer, and you can right-click and say Change Object Layer. And it'll switch it to that layer. So I'll do that for each one, and I'll make this one that, and this to there. So you can see that now there are 3 different shades of gray. And then you guys know how to do the box, so I'm only going to do this for one plane and apply it to the plane layer. So I'll do another box command, start it here, and this one's going to be 20 feet by 20 feet. Oh, okay. So a new thing. If I'm not going to be developing a box at the origin, I'm sure many of the rest of you have forgotten this as well, even the more experienced ones, you have to put an @ symbol in front of it. If you don't start from the origin, the second point is going to go to the the point that is 20 feet by 20 feet away from the origin. So if you say @ then it's going to go 20 feet by 20 feet away from where you started that object. So anyway, I click that and I'm going to say @ 20 feet, comma, 20 feet. Now we have our proper square profile. And this is 1.5 inches thick. And it looks really bad when it's gray. But if I make it blue, not so bad. I don't know, I'm just guessing. Okay, so what's going to happen in reality is you guys are going to have, I mean, you might wind up with some small ones that switch colors. You might wind up with the large ones that are dark, and if most of your large ones are light. It depends on what you decide as the designer, where it should be and why. Let me just do a quick preface about this and say that this is not a design class. So I will put emphasis on urging you to be thinking like a designer, and your design in this class should be eloquent. But I'm not necessarily going to be spending time critiquing you on your design. So what I would suggest is, if you want to treat this class a little bit more like a design studio, then you'll have to kind of pull me aside for like a design critique, per se. I might comment on some things here and there, but that won't be my focus. Okay, that's a disclaimer for the class. All right, so what I'd like you to do is continue making these elements, and then I'm going to give us a quick, I'll do a 10-minute break here, and then we'll go into the actual movement and placement of these items in space in a easy and nice way. Okay. Any questions on that?